My name is Jake, and today I'll be teaching you a review of the present perfect tense. How do we form the present perfect tense? We need two words to form this tense: the helping verb have and the past participle of the verb. For example, in the sentence, I have eaten breakfast today, have is the helping verb, and eaten is the past participle of the verb eat. Here are some examples with different subjects. You have studied this before. They have gone home. When we use the subjects I, you, and they, we use the helping verb have. Compare this to the third person singular subject he. He has eaten breakfast today. We still have the two words needed to form this tense. But for a singular subject, we must change have to has. She has taken the test. It has rained twice this week. What about forming a negative sentence? I have not heard this song before. Simply insert not after the helping verb. He has not finished his project yet. Or we can use the contraction, which is the shortened form. It is common to use the contraction in spoken English. I have traveled to China and India. I have had very short hair, even shorter than this. I have seen a famous person. Let's look at what I just said. I have traveled to China and India. I have had very short hair. I have seen a famous person. There's a famous person in the background of this picture. When did these actions happen? We don't know. There is no specific time. Now, let's compare these to the simple past tense. I traveled to China in 2009. I traveled to India last March. I had short hair in high school. I saw a famous person 8 years ago. Do you notice a difference between the sentences on the left and the ones on the right? On the left, there is no specific time. I am just listing my life experiences. On the right, however, I mention a specific time. When a specific time is mentioned, it is not possible to use the present perfect. You must use the simple past. Notice words like last and ago. These are key words that indicate we use simple past, not present perfect. If we use for or since, we should use present perfect. This is for an action that hasn't finished yet. It started in the past and is still continuing now. For example, he has worked there for 23 years. She has been on vacation for 8 days. I have been in my office for 15 minutes. Notice the word for. We can use for with an amount of time. All of these actions are still continuing. Another key word is since. They have been in Canada since 2013. Use since with a date or point in time, not an amount of time. I have eaten 3 apples since 9 o'clock this morning. Or, she has studied English since she was a child. Notice we can use since with a clause. In this case, the dependent clause, or the clause that begins with the word since, is in simple past. The independent clause uses present perfect. We can also use present perfect tense with unfinished time periods. For example, we have taken 2 tests this month. In this case, the month has not finished yet. I have eaten 3 apples today. In this case, today is not over. And finally, I have swum twice so far this week. Notice the phrase so far. This can be used with an unfinished period of time. This implies that I will probably swim again before the week is over. Now let's learn how to make questions in present perfect tense. First, let's listen. Notice the questions I ask you in this video. Well, now you know a few things about me. You know I've traveled out of the country, and you know I've swum this week. What about you? Have you traveled out of the country? Have you swum this week? You have already learned how to form a sentence with this tense, with a subject and a helping verb and a past participle. Now, making the question is easy. Move the helping verb to the place before the subject. In English questions, a verb comes before the subject. Have you traveled to India? The correct response to this question is, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. This is called a yes-no question because the only possible answers are yes and no. If we have a third-person singular subject, remember to use has instead of have. For example, has Bob driven a motorcycle? Correct answers are, yes, he has, or no, he hasn't. Now let's look at information questions, also called WH questions. What has Bob driven? To this question, we can answer, he has driven a motorcycle, or a motorcycle. To form a WH question, we keep the same order that we had in our yes-no questions, but now we add a question word to the front. Here's another example. Where have you traveled? The answer is, I have traveled to India, or, for a shorter answer, to India. So, in a WH question, just follow this order. WH word, helping verb, subject, past participle. Here's another example. I have seen that movie 3 times. Use present perfect with words like once, twice, or 3 times. Also, I have already seen that movie. Already can be used in affirmative sentences or questions. Yet and still are also used with present perfect. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Have you eaten dinner yet? Yet can be used in negative sentences or questions. Or, I still haven't gone to the store. Still is used in negative sentences. Finally, have you ever met me? I haven't ever met you. Or, I've never met you and you've never met me. Ever and never are common words for present perfect. Ever means at any time in your entire life. It can be used in a question or a negative sentence.
Past tense review. As you already know, affirmative statements in the simple past are made by attaching an ed to the simple forms of regular verbs. For example, most days I work for 8 hours, but yesterday I worked for 12 hours. I arrived at work at 7 a.m. and stayed in my office until 7 p.m. Ooh, that was a long day. Of course, you have already learned that there are many irregular verbs in English that do not follow this conjugation rule. For example, Julie usually walks to school, but last Friday it rained, so she rode the bus instead. That day she left work early because she was tired. Rode, left, and was are all examples of irregular verbs in the past. If you don't remember all of your irregular verb forms, now would be a good time to pause the video and review them. All right, in this example, there is one verb that has a regular past tense conjugation. Can you find it? Yep, rained. You know it's regular because it has an ed. To make negative statements and questions in the simple past, we need the auxiliary verb did or did not and the simple form of the main verb. Did you steal my chocolate?
No, I didn't steal your chocolate.
Okay, so why do we use the simple past? Well, we use it to talk about completed past actions. We can see that they have a clear beginning and an end. Also, we often use this tense with past time words like yesterday, last year, 3 minutes ago, etc. And finally, the simple past may be used to express a sequence of past activities. Let me show you what I mean. Let's talk a little bit about my Saturday. It was very busy. In the morning, I read a book. Then I rode my bike. After that, I went for a walk. Then I took a nap. Later, I cooked dinner. Finally, I watched TV. This is a sequence of activities in the past, introduced by expressions of time. This is a very common use of the simple past. Another way to talk about past actions is by using the past progressive. The past progressive is formed with the past tense conjugations of the verb to be and a present participle, or verb plus ing. For example, when I arrived at work yesterday, it was raining. When I returned home, however, the sun was shining. To make a question in the past progressive, we need a question word, if relevant, was or were, the subject, and a present participle. For example, excuse me, what were you doing at 3 p.m.? That's when I was away from my desk and someone stole my chocolate.
I didn't do it. I was working on a report, so I didn't steal your chocolate.
We use the past progressive to talk about an activity in progress in the past. We can only use action verbs with the past progressive, no verbs of state, just like with other progressive tenses. And the past progressive often appears with another action either in the simple past or past progressive. Let's go back to my busy Saturday to understand a little bit better. I read, rode my bike, went for a walk, took a nap, cooked dinner, and watched TV. We can see each of these activities in their entirety. That is, we know when they started and when they ended because we use the simple past. However, what happens if we zoom in on any of these activities? While I was reading, I was drinking coffee. This is an example of two activities in progress at the same time.
Hey.
Hey, whoa! While I was riding my bike, someone said, hey. This is an example of an ongoing activity interrupted by another action. And as you can see, I was dancing while I was walking. Again, here we have an example of two activities in progress at the same time. Okay, let's quickly summarize this review. We use both the simple past and the past progressive to talk about past time events in English. To form the simple past, we need an ed for regular verbs. But watch out, because there are a lot of irregular conjugations as well. We use the simple past to talk about completed past actions. And this tense is often accompanied by time words, like yesterday. To form the past progressive, we need was or were and a present participle. We use the past progressive to talk about activities in progress, and this tense often appears with another activity in the past. All right, did you have fun reviewing the past tense in English? The future tense. You already know that we use be going to and will to make predictions. For example, you are going to love this lesson. You will learn so much. However, will and be going to can be used differently. Furthermore, there are other verb forms that we can use to express a future time. Imagine you were bored at home on a Saturday afternoon. You decide it would be nice to see a movie later tonight, but you'd rather not go alone. What will your friends say regarding their plans for tonight, which is a time in the future? Ugh, I'm bored. I know. I'll see if someone wants to go see a movie with me tonight. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm having dinner with a friend tonight, but thanks. I would love to, but I'll be flying to New York then. My plane leaves at 7 sharp. No, thanks. I'm going to take it easy tonight. Yeah, I'll go see a movie with you. Thanks for asking. Woohoo! Did you notice all the different verb forms we use to talk about the future? Let's review them together. I know. I'll see if someone wants to go see a movie with me tonight. I'll is a contraction for I will. We use will when a decision about the future is made at the moment of speaking. The speaker wasn't planning on seeing a movie, but she decided to do so spontaneously. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm having dinner with a friend tonight. What verb tense do you notice here? That's right. You see the present progressive. It is also common to use the present progressive to talk about the future. In this case, the speaker has already made plans. You will often see this use of the present progressive to convey future plans with a future time marker, like tonight. I'll be flying to New York then. This is an example of the future progressive. We use the future progressive to talk about an action in the future that will be in progress at a certain time. Remember, no stative verbs with progressive constructions. My plane leaves at 7 sharp. You should recognize this verb form as the simple present. In this case, it refers to the future. It is common to use the simple present to refer to the future when talking about schedules or itineraries that we can't necessarily control. I'm going to take it easy tonight. This is a very common way to express the future, which I'm sure you recognize right away. We use be going to talk about planned future events. In this case, the decision was made previously. In spoken English, be going to sounds like gonna. I'll go see a movie with you. Which form is this an example of? You got it. I'll is I will. Why did the speaker use I'll or I will here? Yep, because it was a spontaneous decision. Okay, let's review together. All right. Let's review what we've learned. When you want to express the future in English, you probably think of will and be going to. And you're right. These are two common verb forms we use to express the future in English. However, there are other ways to do so. We can also use the present progressive, the simple present, and the future progressive to talk about the future. When we use will, we use it to make predictions and for spontaneous decisions made in the moment of speaking. With be going to, we also use it to make predictions, but in addition, we use it for planned events. With the present progressive, we can talk about the future if we have definite plans, and this usually is used with a future time marker, like later, tomorrow, this evening. We can also use the simple present to talk about the future when we're referring to itineraries and schedules that are set and that we can't control. And finally, we use the future progressive to talk about future actions in progress at a given time. Thank you for reviewing with me. Remember to keep looking forward.
perfect and future perfect review. Let's watch a quick video that will help us talk about these tenses.
Oh no! What's this? This is not mine. This is Emily's, and she's getting ready to leave for the airport. I have to give this to her before she leaves. I'll never make it in time in these shoes. Oh no! I'm gonna be so late. Better hurry. Oh no! She's leaving right now! Where's Emily?
She already left.
No!
Let's look at a timeline of what happened. You saw me run to the office, but when I arrived, Emily was not there because she left before I arrived. We have two actions that both started and finished in the past. One action happened before the other action. We could say it like this: Emily left, I arrived. But the time order is not clear. To be clear, we could say Emily left before I arrived, or Emily had already left by the time I arrived. This is the past perfect tense. Emily had already left. To form this tense, we use the helping verb had and the past participle of the verb leave. Or we can also say, Emily had gone to the airport before I arrived. We use the helping verb had and the past participle of go. We use this tense when we have two finished actions that happened in the past. The verb that is in the past perfect is always the action that happened first. This action started and ended before the second action occurred. Notice that the later action uses the simple past. Past perfect must be used with the action that occurred first. I had changed my shoes before I got to the office. First, I changed my shoes. It is wrong to say, I changed my shoes before I had gotten to the office, because the later action cannot use the past perfect. We can use the word already to emphasize that one thing happened before another. It is very common to use already, but it is not necessary. Emily had already left by the time I arrived. By the time has the same meaning as before and can be used with the past perfect. Emily had already left before I arrived has the same meaning. If you use by the time, you should use simple past in the dependent clause and use past perfect in the independent clause, or the clause without by the time. We can use this tense without either of these words. I had changed my shoes before I got to the office. But if you want to use already, just insert it between the helping verb and the past participle of the main verb. We know the order of these events. Emily had already left by the time I arrived. We can also say, Emily had been in her car for about 15 minutes by the time I arrived. If we want to compare the time between these two events, we can use the preposition for and an amount of time. We can also use since. Emily had been in her car since 11:45, but I arrived at 12 o'clock. Okay, let's see what will happen next.
Oh no, she's on her way to the airport. By the time she gets to the airport, her phone will have died.
By the time she gets to the airport, her phone will have already died. Both of these actions will occur in the future. Will have died, gets there. But we cannot say will get, because we can't use future tense in a time clause with words like before or by the time. The action that will happen first is die. The second action is get. You may know this as the future perfect tense. To form this tense, use will, have, and the past participle. We use future perfect tense when there are two actions that will both occur in the future. Future perfect is used with the action that will happen first. This action will finish before the second action occurs. It is common to use by the time before the second action. Remember, by the time means before. We can also say the same sentence like this. Her phone will have already died by the time she gets to the airport. What will poor Emily do?
What? My charger? Well, I can't come back now. By the time I drive there, my plane will have already left.
By the time she drives back to the office, the plane will have already left. Which action will happen first? Her plane will leave first before she drives back. Notice the same rules apply for by the time and already as in the past perfect. By the time goes before the second action, and already goes between the helping verb and the past participle. I guess Emily will not be able to use her phone because I was too slow. Thanks for listening.